Ladies and gentlemen, when we hear the phrase a woman with no friends, what comes to mind? For many, it paints a picture of loneliness, of someone who's missing out, or worse, someone who's broken. But let me tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. This isn't about pity or judgment, it's about redefining what it means to stand alone in a world that equates social circles with success. For far too long, society has told women that their value lies in how many people surround them, how many hands clap for them, and how many smiles validate them. But what if I told you that the greatest applause a woman can hear is her own? A woman with no friends is not a woman without value. She's a woman with space to think, to breathe, to rediscover herself. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's the sanctuary where resilience is born. It's the quiet where dreams whisper their loudest, where ideas find their wings, and where strength sharpens itself like a blade. The world tells us we need friends to be complete. But let's flip that narrative on its head. Because when you walk alone, you don't follow footsteps, you create your own path. A woman who learns to rely on herself becomes unstoppable. She doesn't wait for someone to catch her when she falls. She learns to pick herself up, dust herself off, and rise taller than before. And let me tell you something about this woman. She is unapologetic. She isn't defined by her circle, her likes, her invites, or her connections. She's defined by her heart, her grit, and her unapologetic commitment to herself. Does this mean she's closed off to friendships? No, it means she chooses her energy wisely. It means she loves deeply but doesn't depend on others for her worth. It means she knows her power isn't in the numbers by her side, but in the fire within her soul. To every woman who's ever felt judged or incomplete for walking alone, I want you to know this: your story is yours to write. Whether your pages are filled with laughter shared in rooms full of friends or with quiet victories achieved in solitude, own it. You don't need a crowd to be a queen. You don't need validation to be valuable. You don't need permission to be powerful. A woman with no friends, she's not alone, she's enough. And that makes her extraordinary. Thank you. Loneliness is often painted as a shadowy figure that creeps into our lives, unwanted and uninvited. It's a word that carries a stigma, a sense of deficiency, and an assumption that something is missing. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if loneliness, or the perception of it, is not a curse but an invitation? An invitation to explore depths within ourselves that we might never have touched had we been constantly surrounded by others. For women, loneliness carries an even heavier burden. We live in a world that glorifies connections, relationships, and camaraderie. From an early age, we're taught that having a circle of friends is not just desirable, it's essential. Friendships are seen as a metric of our social worth, our likability, and sometimes even our success. But is it fair to measure a woman's life by how many people stand beside her? Is it fair to assume that solitude is synonymous with sadness? Loneliness doesn't have to be a dark corner, it can be a bright, open space. It's in this space that we begin to redefine ourselves, not by the roles we play for others, but by the essence of who we truly are. When the noise of the world quiets down, when the constant hum of social obligations fades away, we are left with something profoundly valuable: time. Time to think, to reflect, to grow. Time to understand what drives us, what excites us, and what we stand for. Being alone is not a flaw, it's an opportunity. It's a chance to listen to the voice that matters most, our own. It's a chance to understand that we are not incomplete without others, we are whole all by ourselves. In solitude, we can learn to embrace our imperfections, celebrate our victories, and heal from our wounds. When we redefine loneliness, we strip it of its negative connotations. We reclaim it as a state of being that doesn't demand external validation. It becomes a time for self discovery, for creating boundaries, and for building a relationship with ourselves. After all, the longest relationship we will ever have is the one we have with ourselves. Shouldn't it be one of love, respect, and understanding? And here's the truth: loneliness isn't always about the absence of people. It's about the presence of connection, connection to ourselves, to our purpose, and to our passions. It's in these quiet moments, these pauses in the rhythm of life, that we often find the clarity and courage to move forward in ways we never imagined. When we redefine loneliness, we give it a new meaning. It's no longer a void to be filled or a state to be feared. It's a canvas to be painted on, a song to be written, a moment to be cherished. It's not about being left out, it's about being let in into the most intimate parts of our own hearts and minds. From the moment we take our first breath, society begins to script our lives, especially as women. There are unspoken rules, subtle nudges, and loud proclamations about who we should be, how we should act, and what defines our worth. One of the most enduring expectations placed upon women is that we must be social beings, nurturing, friendly, and surrounded by people. The image of the ideal woman is often one who moves effortlessly within a crowd, a woman with an inner circle of friends and a calendar brimming with social engagements. This expectation is so deeply ingrained that we rarely stop to question it. If a woman doesn't fit this mold, she's judged often harshly. A woman with few or no friends is viewed with suspicion, as though her solitude is a red flag, a sign of failure, or worse, a deficiency in her character. She becomes the subject of whispered conversations, speculative glances, and unwarranted pity. But why? Why is a woman's ability to navigate relationships or maintain a social network often treated as a measure of her success? Why is solitude viewed as a problem to be solved rather than a choice to be celebrated? The truth is, society has long equated a woman's value with her connections to others. For centuries, women have been seen as the glue that holds families, communities, and friendships together. The role of the caregiver, the mediator, and the nurturer has been thrust upon us, often leaving little room to question whether we even want to play these roles. And when a woman chooses or finds herself in a space without these connections, it challenges the very foundation of these expectations. This pressure to conform can feel suffocating. It's not just about having friends, it's about having the right kind of friendships, the ones that look picture perfect on social media, the ones that are publicly displayed and validated by likes and comments. Women are expected to balance it all, be strong yet approachable, ambitious yet accommodating, and independent yet surrounded by a cheering squad. It's a tightrope that leaves little room for authenticity. Society rarely considers the reasons behind a woman's solitude. Perhaps she's focused on her career, building a life that doesn't leave much time for maintaining superficial relationships. Perhaps she's experienced betrayals or heartbreaks that have made her selective about who she allows into her inner world. Or perhaps she simply values her own company over the performative nature of certain friendships. Whatever the reason, it is often overlooked because it doesn't fit the narrative society has built around what a woman should be. Even in moments of vulnerability, when a woman might openly express her solitude, the responses she receives are often more harmful than helpful. People rush to offer solutions as though her aloneness is something to be fixed. Why don't you join a club? You should be more outgoing. Maybe you're too picky. These well meaning but misguided remarks reinforce the idea that her life is incomplete without friends, dismissing the strength and autonomy she may have found in her solitude. What's even more troubling is the double standard. A man without friends is often seen as mysterious, focused, or independent. He's praised for being self sufficient and goal oriented. But a woman in the same position, she's labeled as difficult, unlikable, or lonely. This dichotomy reflects a deeper societal bias that demands women prove their worth through relationships while allowing men the freedom to define themselves on their own terms. The expectation for women to be endlessly social also ignores the diversity of personalities and life experiences. Not every woman thrives in social settings. Some are introverted, finding joy and energy in solitude rather than crowds. Others have experienced trauma or betrayal that makes them cautious about forming new relationships. And still others simply prioritize their own growth and goals over societal pressures. Society's expectations are not just limiting, they're exhausting. They place a heavy burden on women to perform, to meet standards that are often unattainable, and to constantly seek validation from external sources. These expectations create a cycle of self doubt, where a woman may question her worth simply because she doesn't fit the prescribed narrative of having a bustling social life. But what's most frustrating is that these expectations rob women of the freedom to define themselves on their own terms. They reduce a woman's identity to a checklist of societal approval, ignoring the richness and complexity of her individual journey. When society insists that a woman must have friends to be happy, successful, or whole, it not only marginalizes those who choose solitude but also diminishes the diverse and multifaceted ways women can live their lives. Solitude is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. For many, it carries an air of discomfort, a space often avoided in favor of distraction and noise. But when you peel back the layers of societal conditioning, solitude reveals itself as one of the most transformative and empowering states of being. It is not a void to be feared, but a canvas upon which you can paint the truest version of yourself. For women, especially, solitude is rarely presented as a virtue. Society places so much emphasis on connection and relationships that being alone is often equated with failure. Yet, solitude is a sanctuary, a place where clarity emerges and strength is cultivated. It is in the quiet moments, away from the chatter and expectations of the world, that a woman can truly hear her own voice. The power of solitude lies in its ability to strip away the distractions and demands of life, leaving you with the most essential question: who am I? In a world that constantly tells women who they should be, whether as daughters, friends, partners, or professionals, solitude offers a rare opportunity to explore who you truly are beneath all the roles and labels. It allows you to connect with your own desires, dreams, and fears without interference. Solitude fosters self awareness. It gives you the space to reflect on your journey, to confront your thoughts, and to navigate your emotions with honesty. In the absence of others, you learn to listen to your instincts, trust your decisions, and embrace your individuality. You begin to realize that your worth isn't tied to how many people are around you, but to how deeply you know and love yourself. In solitude, you discover resilience. Life is full of challenges, and while support from others is valuable, there is unparalleled strength in knowing you can rely on yourself. Solitude teaches you how to weather storms without seeking validation or rescue from others. It helps you build an inner foundation that remains unshaken no matter the circumstances. Solitude also nurtures creativity and vision. Without the constant noise of social obligations or external expectations, your mind has the freedom to wander, explore, and innovate. Many of history's greatest thinkers, artists, and leaders credit their most profound ideas to moments of solitude. When you're alone, your imagination isn't competing with the opinions or judgments of others. You're free to dream boldly, think deeply, and create without limits. For women, solitude can be a radical act of self care. It's a declaration that your time, energy, and attention are valuable and that they don't always need to be spent on others. It's a chance to rest, recharge, and realign with your goals. In a society that often glorifies busyness and selflessness, choosing solitude is a way of reclaiming your time and prioritizing your well being. The beauty of solitude is that it reveals your true capacity. When you're alone, there's no one to lean on, no one to shift the blame to, and no one to share the weight of your decisions. It's just you, and that's where the magic happens. You realize you are enough. You realize you can handle far more than you ever imagined. And you learn that your own company can be the most fulfilling relationship of all. Solitude is not just a pause, it's a process. It's a time for healing old wounds, for learning lessons, and for growing into the person you are meant to be. It's where you confront the parts of yourself that you might hide in the presence of others. It's where you begin to see yourself not as the world defines you, but as you truly are flawed, beautiful, and whole. In solitude, you also discover freedom. You're not bound by the expectations or judgments of others. You don't have to explain yourself, perform for approval, or conform to anyone's standards. You can be unapologetically yourself. You can take risks, make mistakes, and pursue your passions without fear of criticism. Solitude is where self love begins. It's in those moments of quiet that you learn to appreciate your own company, to forgive yourself for your shortcomings, and to celebrate your own successes. It's where you build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in kindness, compassion, and respect. It's a reminder that you are whole and worthy with or without the presence of others. The power of solitude lies in its ability to transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. It's not an escape from life, but an immersion into it. It's a reminder that strength isn't found in how many people surround you, but in how deeply you connect with yourself. But it's a space for growth, healing, and self discovery, a space where you can redefine what it means to be truly alive. Self reliance is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can navigate life's challenges, make your own decisions, and stand tall even when the world feels like it's falling apart. It's not about shutting people out or denying the value of relationships. It's about building a foundation so strong within yourself that you don't need others to validate your worth or rescue you from life storms. For women, in particular, self reliance is not just a strength, it's a superpower. From an early age, women are often conditioned to seek support, to depend on others for approval, and to find safety in external relationships. We're taught to value collaboration and connection over independence. And while community and support are undoubtedly important, this narrative often overlooks the transformative power of self reliance. It assumes that a woman alone is vulnerable, when in truth, a woman who learns to rely on herself is unstoppable. Self reliance is not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about cultivating an inner strength that allows you to thrive no matter the circumstances. It's about becoming your own anchor, your own safety net, and your own source of strength. It's the ability to trust yourself, to trust your instincts, your decisions, and your ability to handle whatever comes your way. For many women, self reliance begins in moments of necessity. It might arise from heartbreak, from being let down by those we depended on, or from realizing that the support we thought was unwavering could disappear in an instant. And these moments, though painful, are often the catalysts for profound growth. They force us to dig deep, to find resilience we didn't know we had, and to discover that we are far more capable than we ever imagined. When a woman becomes self reliant, she steps into her power. She no longer waits for someone else to solve her problems or to validate her choices. She takes ownership of her life, her happiness, and her future. This doesn't mean she rejects help or support. It means she understands that her strength comes from within. She doesn't need to be saved because she has learned to save herself. Self reliance also breeds confidence. When you know you can rely on yourself, you walk through the world with the sense of assurance that no external validation can provide. You don't need to seek approval from others because you trust your own judgment. You don't need to fear failure because you know you have the resilience to bounce back. This kind of confidence is magnetic. It draws people to you, not because you need them, but because your independence inspires and empowers them. One of the most beautiful aspects of self reliance is that it teaches you to embrace your individuality. When you stop depending on others to define your worth, you become free to be unapologetically yourself. You don't have to conform to societal expectations or seek approval for your choices. You can chart your own path, pursue your own dreams, and live life on your own terms. Self reliance is also deeply liberating. It frees you from the fear of losing people, opportunities, or external support. When you know you can rely on yourself, you don't cling to relationships or situations out of fear or insecurity. You choose to be with people and in spaces that genuinely enrich your life, not because you need them, but because you want them. This freedom allows you to build healthier, more authentic connections with others. For women, self reliance can be a form of defiance, a way of pushing back against a society that often underestimates us or tells us we need to be saved. It's a way of reclaiming our power and showing the world that we are more than capable of standing on our own two feet. It's a declaration that we are not defined by our relationships, our roles, or our dependencies, but by our strength, our resilience, and our ability to create the lives we want. Self reliance also opens the door to self discovery. When you stop relying on others to guide your path, you begin to explore who you truly are. You learn what makes you happy, what drives you, and what you're capable of achieving. You become the architect of your own life, designing a future that reflects your values, your passions, and your dreams. In moments of solitude, self reliance shines brightest. It's in those times when there's no one to turn to, no one to lean on, that you discover the depths of your own strength. You learn to solve problems on your own, to face fears without reassurance, and to celebrate victories without applause. These moments of independence are not just empowering, they're transformative. They show you that you are enough, just as you are, and that you have everything you need within yourself to thrive. Self reliance doesn't mean you'll never need help or support. It means you'll never be defined by it. It's the understanding that while relationships and connections are beautiful and valuable, your true power lies in your ability to stand strong on your own. It's about knowing that you are not a supporting character in someone else's story, you are the hero of your own. The narratives that define our lives are often not of our own making. They are crafted by culture, shaped by tradition, and perpetuated by societal expectations. For women, these narratives have long been scripted with rigid roles and ideals: the caregiver, the nurturer, the social butterfly, the ever available friend. These stories tell us how we should live, who we should be, and what our worth is tied to. But what happens when a woman doesn't fit into these pre written scripts? What happens when she dares to write her own story, one that doesn't conform to the conventional expectations? This is where the power of shifting the narrative begins. Shifting the narrative means questioning the stories we've been told about who we should be. It means challenging the idea that a woman's value is measured by her relationships, her social circle, or her ability to meet the endless expectations of others. It's about rejecting the notion that solitude is a flaw or that independence is a threat. Instead, it's about reclaiming our right to define our lives on our own terms. For centuries, women have been portrayed as incomplete without others. Popular culture, literature, and even history have perpetuated the idea that a woman's happiness and success are tied to her ability to nurture and maintain connections. We're taught to be likable, to seek validation, and to prioritize relationships over our own needs. A woman who stands alone is often seen as an outlier, someone to be pitied or questioned. But this narrative is outdated and it's time to rewrite it. Shifting the narrative starts with reframing how we view solitude and self reliance. Instead of seeing them as weaknesses, we can begin to recognize them as strengths. A woman who chooses to walk her path alone is not lonely, she is purposeful. She is not lacking, she is self sufficient. She is not to be pitied, she is to be admired. It takes courage to stand apart from the crowd, to prioritize your own growth and happiness over societal expectations. And that courage deserves to be celebrated. Um, this shift also involves redefining what it means to be a strong, fulfilled woman. Strength doesn't always look like being surrounded by people or constantly giving to others. Sometimes strength is found in the quiet moments of self reflection, in the ability to set boundaries, and in the decision to walk away from relationships that no longer serve us. Fulfillment doesn't always come from external connections, it often comes from within, from the peace of knowing who you are and what you stand for. The narrative around friendships and social connections is one that particularly needs to change. While friendships are undoubtedly valuable, the idea that every woman must have a vibrant social circle to be happy is both limiting and unfair. Some women thrive in solitude, finding joy and inspiration in their own company. Others are selective about their relationships, choosing depth over quantity. Neither choice is wrong, it's simply a reflection of individuality. Shifting the narrative means making space for all experiences, recognizing that there is no one size fits all approach to happiness or connection. Another key aspect of shifting the narrative is addressing the double standards that exist in society. A man who is independent and self reliant is often praised for his strength and focus, while a woman in the same position is questioned or judged. This disparity is rooted in outdated gender roles that view women as dependent and communal by nature. By challenging these stereotypes, we can create a world where women are free to embrace their independence without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. Shifting the narrative also requires unlearning the idea that women must always be nice or agreeable. Too often, women are taught to avoid conflict, to put others' needs before their own, and to prioritize being liked over being authentic. But this narrative does a disservice to women, forcing them to suppress their true selves in order to meet societal expectations. By embracing authenticity over likability, women can reclaim their voices and live more honest, fulfilling lives. It's important to recognize that shifting the narrative is not just about changing how women see themselves, it's about changing how the world sees women. It's about creating a culture that values individuality over conformity, that celebrates women for their unique strengths and choices, rather than trying to fit them into a predefined mold. And it's about teaching future generations of women that they are enough just as they are and that their worth is not tied to how well they meet others' expectations. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. Shifting the narrative requires intention, effort, and a willingness to challenge deeply ingrained beliefs. It starts with small steps, questioning the messages we receive from media, rejecting the pressure to conform, and embracing our own definitions of success and happiness. It grows through conversations, through sharing our stories and experiences, and through supporting other women as they navigate their own journeys. At its core, shifting the narrative is about empowerment. It's about giving women the freedom to live authentically, to define their own paths, and to embrace their individuality without fear or hesitation. It's about recognizing that there is no single way to be a woman, and that diversity in experience, choice, and expression is something to be celebrated, not feared. It's about creating a new story, one where women are seen not as supporting characters, but as the authors of their own lives. Owning your story is one of the most empowering decisions you can make in life. It is the act of embracing every chapter, every triumph, every failure, every twist and turn with unapologetic honesty. It's about refusing to hide the parts of yourself that society might judge, refusing to water down your truth to make it more palatable for others, and refusing to let anyone else dictate the meaning of your experiences. For women, owning your story is not just an act of self acceptance, it is a bold reclamation of your power. And from the time we are young, we are often taught to tell stories that fit neatly into the world's expectations. We are encouraged to highlight the acceptable parts of our lives, the moments that make others comfortable or proud. We are taught to downplay our struggles, to hide our mistakes, and to gloss over the complexities of our experiences. This conditioning often leaves women feeling like they must edit their stories, presenting only the polished version of themselves to the world. But the truth is, the power of your story lies in its authenticity. Authenticity. Owning your story means letting go of shame. Too often, women carry shame for things that are beyond their control, society's expectations, cultural norms, or the fear of judgment. We're told to feel ashamed of our imperfections, our failures, and even our ambitions. But shame has no place in the narrative of a life well lived. By owning your story, you take the power back from those who would use shame to silence or diminish you. You recognize that every part of your journey has shaped you into the person you are today, and you refuse to apologize for any of it. When you own your story, you give yourself permission to be seen, not the curated version of you, but the real, raw, unfiltered you. You acknowledge your flaws and mistakes, not as weaknesses, but as evidence of your humanity. And you take pride in your strengths, not because they make you better than others, but because they are a testament to your resilience. You stand tall in your truth, even when it's messy or complicated, because you know that your story is uniquely yours and no one else has the right to rewrite it. Owning your story also means taking responsibility for your narrative. It's easy to fall into the trap of blaming circumstances, other people, or society for the parts of your life you're unhappy with. And while external factors often play a role, owning your story is about focusing on what you can control. It's about choosing to be the protagonist of your life rather than a passive observer. It's about recognizing that while you can't change the past, you have the power to shape your future. For women, this is particularly important because we are often taught to see ourselves through the lens of others. We're told to define our worth based on our relationships, our appearances, or our ability to meet societal expectations. Owning your story is a way of breaking free from these limiting narratives. It's about saying, I am more than what others see, I am more than what society expects. I am the author of my own life, and I get to decide what my story means. Owning your story also creates space for healing. Many of us carry wounds from our past moments of pain, betrayal, or loss that we'd rather forget. But burying these experiences doesn't make them go away, it only gives them more power over us. When you own your story, you face these wounds head on. You acknowledge their impact, you process the emotions they bring, and you find a way to move forward. This doesn't mean forgetting or erasing the pain, it means integrating it into story as a source of strength and growth. There is incredible freedom in owning your story. When you stop seeking approval or validation from others, you liberate yourself from the pressure to conform. You no longer feel the need to explain or justify your choices because you know that your life is yours to live. You set boundaries that protect your peace and align with your values. You make decisions based on what feels right for you rather than what others expect. And in doing so, you create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. Owning your story is also a gift to others. When you stand in your truth, you give others permission to do the same. Your vulnerability becomes a source of connection, showing others that they are not alone in their struggles. Your courage inspires others to face their own fears and embrace their own stories. And your authenticity creates a ripple effect, challenging the societal norms that pressure women to hide or diminish their true selves. This journey isn't always easy. Owning your story requires courage to face your past, to confront your fears, and to let go of the need for approval. It requires resilience because not everyone will understand or accept your truth. And it requires self compassion because you will inevitably make mistakes along the way. But the rewards are immeasurable. When you own your story, you reclaim your power. You stop letting others define your worth and you start living life on your own terms. You become the narrator of your journey, shaping your experiences into a story of strength, resilience, and authenticity. You recognize that every chapter, whether joyful or painful, has value, and you embrace it all as part of the rich tapestry of your life. In the end, a woman with no friends is not a woman without value, depth, or strength. She is a woman who has chosen, or perhaps been compelled, to walk a path of independence, resilience, and self discovery. Through solitude, she redefines loneliness, challenges society's expectations, and learns to embrace her own power. She is not confined by societal narratives, but instead shifts them, owning her story with pride and purpose. Our journey teaches her that self reliance is not a weakness, but a superpower, and her experiences are a testament to the courage it takes to stand alone in a world that often misunderstands solitude. This is not a story of isolation, it is one of empowerment, authenticity, and a deep connection with oneself. She is not less because she stands alone, she is whole, complete, and fiercely herself, a force to be reckoned with in every way.